Well guys, the Italian job went exactly as the All Blacks wanted for it to go. While Italy have improved significantly in recent years, they quite simply had a rude awakening that would have taught them that the whole team needs to turn up to games. The All Blacks may not be dead, we've just simply been having a hiatus from 2017 to 2023 that will end next year when Scott Robertson takes over. My name's Max, I'm the host over here at the Black Jersey, and I want to say a massive thank you to my patrons for all the support they've been giving this channel throughout the World Cup. The All Blacks obviously got a massive 96-17 win over the Italians, coached by the former All Black himself, Kieran Crowley. It was a bit of a one-sided match, and quite simply, if I broke down every single try scored in the game, I think we would be here for hours. The kind of alarming thing though is that only 5 of the 13 tries scored by the All Blacks really showed any semblance of structure. There were quite a lot of tries that will not get scored against tougher nations to face. So yeah, it's a very interesting game that we can take a lot of interesting things away from. I do just want to send you guys over to Rumble to see my analysis videos from round 1 and rounds 2 of the World Cup. Just because of a few copyright issues here on YouTube, that means I can only use stills for this video over here. Without further ado guys, let's see how the All Blacks completed the Italian job and smashed the Azzurri. Let's get into this. Before we discuss what the All Blacks actually did on the pitch, I want you guys to see this pattern here. It's the only real consistent pre-planned move that the All Blacks seem to be using on a regular basis during 2023. The reason that I don't want to buy into false confidence is that we don't actually get anything new out of Jordan's opening try, we just get the different method of attacking using this very same pattern. The only difference between what we see on screen and the animation is that Mo'unga only has a 2-man pod on his outside because he himself isn't the player in behind it. Because a larger player is the distributor hiding behind the pod, Papali'i and Savea can get away with hiding Jordie Barrett without the use of a third pod member, hence why Scott Barrett is in the red circle doing nothing. Just like the animation shows us, Jordie Barrett is in a position where he can take either the pass from behind Papali'i or wraparounds to Savea's outside. The potential to wrap around to Savea's outside is why Italy's defensive lines copy the white arrows. They're taking into account the likelihood of Beauden Barrett and Rieko Ioane shifting further to their outside. Italy, however, had defense in this match that was dog. Varney is a halfback, yet Italy expect him to defend the lot of the space that's in the circle while also eyeing up a king hit on Ioane who is 23 kg heavier. There's also the elephant in the room about how Tommaso Allen is not a fullback. Because of these factors and the All Blacks' own selection of a fullback in a 12, this allows Jordie's pinpoint kick to land here in Will Jordan's arms as Jordan can follow the black arrow to the try line. If we look at an alternate version of the initial attack pattern I showed you guys, you can see it's the exact same formula of the ball reaching a winger, just without 3 players in the pod that hides a distributor. The distributor now simply skips everyone in the hands down the line axis to give the ball straight to the winger off the boot. As I said, there are several tries I'm simply not going to bother analysing since Kieran Crowley himself admitted Italy won't look at them. I will, however, create an exception for Telea and Savea's first tries so I can paint the picture of Italy's horrible defence. Speaking of Savea, he's running a very different angle than Retallick over here. Lamb has been completely fooled about Retallick making a pass to Beauden Barrett off this blue axis, but Savea is looking to cut back on the inside. Lamaro and Lamb are both drifting towards their inside channel, so by following the same line, Savea is forcing Lamaro into a side-on tackle. By being side-on, Lamaro will allow for this pass to Savea to get him through the hole over here. If Lamaro faces Savea, not Taylor, he can very easily push him back. When Lamaro's right shoulder connects to Savea's right arm though, we can notice that Lamaro's right foot isn't underneath his shoulder to give him positional support, because Lamaro's spine isn't aligned with Savea's waist. He simply doesn't have the ability to wrap both arms around and drive Savea backwards. He's given Savea dominance of momentum while at pace. Savea manages to run 25 meters before Italy now fail to communicate about whether it's Ioane or Allen tackling Beauden Barrett. Because they fail to communicate, we're now able to examine a new freeze frame where Telea is left completely unmarked. If Ioane trusted Allen to tackle Barrett, then Ioane would be standing here on the red cross, able to follow this arrow and line up a shot on Telea. Monty Ioane though is absolute horror show Of defensive positioning though, it allows Telea to beat 5 defenders before he scores the try. Savea, who is the GOAT's brother, will never get an easier run to the try line than this. During the line out, Savea makes the shift from the blind side to the open side, meaning he's to the right of the maul when he takes the pass. By making this shift, he's left Neymar marking nobody while he's able to run at a gap himself. Nicotera, in an attempt to close the gap, does this. By making an awful tackle attempt, he allows for Savea to dot down pretty much uncontested. Italy throughout the match simply just had awful tackling that I'm not going to be able to defend. As we'll talk about with the full-time stats at the end of this video, they had a tackle ratio of 74%. Against teams who have much better tackle technique, the All Blacks aren't just going to be able to score tries for fun like this. Just crashing the ball up over and over and over and assuming that your opposition is going to miss a tackle is a big problem with NZ Rugby as a whole, not just the current Ian Foster All Blacks. Ardie Savea getting all these clean breaks just so easily, beating 14 defenders in the match. This doesn't happen against teams who have got a proper defensive structure. Italy quite simply are using a rush defense which is too far out of date. The rush defense, everyone knows how to exploit it these days. You just attack from deep and you're able to disconnect it because the defense is coming at you at such an immense pace. Italy, by using the rush defense, really dug their own grave and it got exploited absolutely brutally. Aaron Smith scores 2 more tries, and for the third, this popular pattern happens again. Retallick and Savea clean a ruck around Jordan after he takes a clearance kick before Mwanga gets a 3-man pod in front of himself straight away. We all know the ball is going to do the thing that you see on screen, but we now draw our attention over to Jordie Barrett. Well, it's very unclear as to what Bodie is doing behind the pod of Frizzell and Taylor. Jordie is running a very nice lazy line that is eventually going to see him slot into this gap to push the All Blacks attack further out to the open side. Italy, however, defend badly again, meaning Jordie doesn't really have to extend the attack at all. Jordan kind of just meanders off to the side while Aaron Smith gets to as much space as a zoo open for him to run into as he scores his hat-trick. A few accidental changes to the scoreline later and we finally see a possible new idea and innovation from the All Blacks. As I showed to you guys in this massively popular video of mine, Scott Barrett's red card forces Aaron Smith to choose which Springbok he lets in for a try. Khaleesi and Marks are both highly likely to score from this position, with Smith being left in the dust. Although this formation we can see on 60-10 isn't new, it feels nice to see the All Blacks doing something they haven't done before. Having learned from South Africa, who are a better team, Kane instantly detaches from the maul, but with Coles still on the blind side. Odogwu now gets forced into the same problem that Smith faced at Twickenham, as we can see a new side-on-side comparison of the two scenarios. As we go back to just simply cover this match, if Odogwu makes the correct decision to zone in on Coles, Kane can still run this line and over Garbisi on his way to the try line. Neymar, in a terrible performance, hasn't even spotted Kane detaching from the maul because his head is buried in Whitelock's shoulder. Coles, remaining out on the wing, then allows for Odogwu to zone in on Kane before he strolls over, following the arrow to the try line. For my longer lasting audience members who have been here since early 2022, you might remember when I discussed how Will Jordan was the key to destroying a rush defense, right? Well, as I showcased in this video here, Jordan is the king of the chip and chase. Copyright means I can't show you this, but Brodie Retallick picks up a knock on, which then leads to Jordan collecting the ball from Retallick's offload just over here. As we zoom out to the wide shot, Italy, who normally defend with an out-of-date rush defense, as I've said, haven't had the opportunity to get in a defensive formation. They're all coming towards Jordan from side on, leaving this absolutely massive gap in the backfield. Monty Ioane then makes a bad defensive call, shooting it on Savea as Garbisi also tackles him, leaving Jordan unopposed as he gets the ball back and scores. For the All Blacks' final try, I'm sure this is going to be heavily studied by Scotland, South Africa and Ireland based on who gets out of the pool. Although we can see Italy start to push back the All Blacks maul, the next freeze frame we'll cut to now shows Kane turning around to pass to Coles, who has followed this animation to track around into where the hinge of the maul is. Coles also has Roygaard on his outside, a very obvious option to take the pass. I suspect that Coles was selected for this match ahead of Samisoni Taukei'aho because Cam Roygaard, who's a very inexperienced player, is his teammate over in the Hurricanes. It makes sense to have Roygaard supported by other players in the Hurricane spine, such as Savea starting at 8, and Coles on the bench as the reserve hooker. So that way, due to his inexperience, he can get picked and have his teammates there to back him up as he's looking to be selected over Finlay Christie, who hasn't performed to the best of his abilities, I'll say. Assuming my hypothesis about the Hurricanes' spine being used off the bench for the knockout stages is correct, we'll likely see Clark or Whainga Anuku on the bench for the quarterfinal instead of McKenzie, with Taukei'aho missing out. As we cut to the wide shot, we can now see that Coles has run in from the touchline to get in front of Roygaard, so that Roygaard is in a better position to attack the gap between the defence line and the maul's hinge. Roygaard now takes the pass right over here, as we can see, just before Coles is about to take the ball into contact. In one final freeze frame, Roygaard gets a pretty nice support line from Anton Lienert-Brown, who can very easily score the try from such a position. Although Monty Ioane gets the final try to give Italy the last say in the 96-17 scoreline, we're just going to recap a few of the full-time stats, as the All Blacks scored 14 tries. A lot of them were in the All Blacks' favour, and so we're going to examine exactly why they were able to take advantage there, of the stats so much. Possession and territory rates, I don't think we need to question them too much. They were always going to be in the All Blacks' favour. They have 57% of the possession and 53% of the territory, and obviously they've run nearly twice as many metres as the Italians. They've beaten more than twice as many defenders. They've made 20 clean breaks. Against Ireland, against South Africa, against Scotland, you're not going to be able to make 20 clean breaks. Italy, with such an out-of-date defensive structure, just allowed bodies to just pile in to their midfield and just really reduce the tackle accuracy of those players. As we can see, Monty Ioane and Ivan Neymar in particular had absolutely dreadful tackle ratios. As we get back to the full-time stats, we can also see the All Blacks are able to offload a lot more due to this high possession rate, and of course making all these clean breaks definitely allowed them more space to give the offloads into as well. Having 6 turnovers compared to Italy's 1 definitely helped them get a bit more of that possession as well. The tackle ratio from Italy, as I said, it was 74%. That's simply unacceptable to be below 75% at test level. It's just not a very good look. Italy lacked experience. They lacked a proper key decision maker in that spine aside from Allen at 15, and Allen isn't even a 15 for crying out loud. Like, the fact that Ange Capuozzo is the guy who leads their 15 depth chart and he got pushed out to the wing for the sake of the fact that his kicking game's not very good, it really tells you the whole story, doesn't it? The ruck success for the All Blacks, absolutely phenomenal as well. More 99%, very good stuff. The line-out and the scrum as well, just dreadful for Italy. They were ripped to pieces in that front of the game. Their scrum percentage was only 25% again. Fischetti, having him stay on, not getting injured, definitely would have helped. And 55% for the line-out. That's just absolutely unforgivable. It's dreadful. And the penalty count also went against Italy, who conceded 14, compared to the All Blacks only conceding 7. So quite simply put, Italy were dreadful. Only 5 of their 23 players even turned up to play, and the All Blacks, I hope, aren't going to get any false confidence out of this game, because I want the All Blacks to win the 2023 Rugby World Cup. I'm not sure if we're going to. I've said that in previous videos, but you know what? Even if we are having a bit of a difficult time right now, at least the end of Ian Foster's tenure is filled with a lot of entertaining tries. People from other nations may not have enjoyed this as much, but you know what? Seeing all these tries get scored, it gives me hope that, you know, after all this time, we have had the talents to win the World Cup, just not necessarily the coaching staff. And you know what? Scott Robertson, Jason Ryan, all those guys next year, the All Blacks are going to be back. Seeing results like this is convincing me that we are coming back to win in 2027. And I want to say one last thank you to my patrons, and just remind you guys as well, now that the video is over, to subscribe to this channel and like this video if you enjoyed it. You can also support me, as I said, over on Instagram, over at Rumble or Odyssey, where a few of my other videos have been sent to. I'll see you later, guys. Cheers for watching. From Max.